So I'm here hanging out with Rachel. She's
Hi.
not that pale, but screen on screen. So I'm gonna do my 10 before the end, which I will almost certainly not be getting to. Most of them. It's something to do, something to strive for. And I actually restrained myself. I had my eye on several very large books, and I only picked one of them. So I just started Cosmopolis by Don DeLillo, and I'm reading that with Rachel, just about 10 pages in. I really enjoyed the names, which I think, oh no, I was about to say it's the only book I'd read by him, but I'd also read The Silence, which is his latest kind of novella that he put out. And I really like the way he writes, and even in the first kind of 10 pages of this, it's just got me really excited. Plus, I love reading books with Rachel. I'm not just saying that because she's right down there either. Then I've got On the Calculation of Volume, Book 1. And I don't know a lot about this other than it is the first part of a septology that they've published the first two of these books. And so I don't know exactly what the plans for publication are, but I've heard a lot of good things. People seem to be enjoying it, so I'm kind of curious about it. And I've got this, it's already been published, or will be published very, very soon this month, but I've got this advanced copy that I need to get to soon. Satan Tango. I did read the first chapter, the first 20 pages of this at some point, maybe a year and a half ago, and it just wasn't the right time, I guess. His writing requires a lot of focus, and I was just not wanting to do that at that time. So I'd recently read his new release, Hersht, however you pronounce it, 07769. And I really enjoyed that. That's told in one single sentence. It's 400 pages long. It read surprisingly well considering that. So it was very interesting, and it made me interested in his other work, and rather than rush out and buy other books by him that look interesting, I thought I would start with the one that I already own, because responsibility. Then I've got Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. I read Paradise, and I really, really liked it. It was almost like just this rush of words, this torrent of words. There's not very many breaks for paragraphs or anything in this, and it's just an avalanche of words. And so I'm very interested to get to this and to see how it compares. I think a lot of people, from what I understand, like this one better than the other one. Then I've got Trilogy. Is it Jan Fosse? John Fosse? I've heard it a few different ways. I'm not entirely sure which one's correct, to be honest. But I read his very, very short book, A Shining, and I thought that was just super intriguing, super atmospheric. So rather than dive into septology, I thought I would dip my toes into something like this, which is about 170 pages or so. Read it in a day or two, I think, maybe over 3 days. Read each section on a day, but we'll see. Now I'm getting into some Jonathan Lethem, who is one of my favorite authors at this point. I read his Brooklyn crime novel last year, and then I have since read about 4 more of his books, and just really like the way that he writes. Always very, very well done. Experimental in different ways, sometimes more difficult to read, sometimes not, but he is just a really good writer, and he's kind of all over the place with stuff too. He doesn't have a specific thing that he sticks to. And so this is his book Motherless Brooklyn, which is about this kid with Tourette's, and I've just heard it is so good. I think some people consider it his best work or close to that. This and Fortress of Solitude, which I read earlier this year with Rachel, are both considered kind of some of his best work, so I'm very interested to see how this compares to that. Anytime he writes about kind of Brooklyn, that area. I think it's really, really interesting because he has a great love for that area and grew up there, so he has a good viewpoint on that. And then this is David Bowman's Bunny Modern, which I bought because of Jonathan Lethem. And I'm probably going to do a whole separate video called Books I Bought Because of Jonathan Lethem, because he has, I say made me, he has, through things I've read from him, convinced me to buy a number of books, and there are a number more that I plan on buying at some point when I think I'm going to get closer to actually reading them. I'm trying to be better about not just buying a shit ton of books and not reading them for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So yeah, it's supposed to be kind of wacky, I think. It's supposed to be very kind of the New York book review called David Bowman's first novel, which is titled Let the Dog Drive. Raymond Chandler merges with Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So that's certainly got me, everything I read about this has made me want to read it more. So, Belle, would you like to join? Well, hopefully the dog will calm down a little bit. You can probably still hear her in the background a little bit, but hopefully it's not too distracting. The next one on my list is No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. I read, absurdly, the first books I read by him were his Passenger and Still Amaris, the last books he wrote, and I need to reread those, I think, especially after having experienced more of his work. Like I did enjoy, come on, I did enjoy the books, of course, but I think after reading more of his work and kind of getting a better understanding of the way he writes and what he writes about, that will add to those books. And also think my reading comprehension is probably a little bit higher than it was when I read those. I've read many more difficult books since then. But anyway, No Country for Old Men. I really liked The Road. It was absolutely fantastic. I read Blood Meridian earlier this year, and it was incredible. I read Child of God, and it was bizarre and very dark. But yeah, excited to get to more McCarthy, and this is supposed to be really accessible McCarthy too, so I think I'll fly through. I'm trying to convince a couple of my friends to read it with me who have not read McCarthy before, and I don't know if it is the best place to start with him or not, but I think it's probably good enough. So the next book I've got is Jay McInerney. Look at that face. Story of My Life. And I may try to convince Rachel to read this with me. She's nodding, so that's good. She's read it before, but get her to read it again, like we did with Bright Lights, Big City earlier this year, which was a reread for both of us. And it's just a really, really good book. Bright Lights, Big City is. We also read Ransom together, and that was also really good. Very, very different book than Bright Lights, Big City, but it was also very, very good. And so I want to read some more. I'm kind of trying to work through him in publication order. Last book on the list is the big one, which I am going to be reading with Rachel, and that's the only way I'm going to be getting through it. Not because it's probably not good, because it's probably really good, but I have a tendency to get bored while reading long books, or distracted may be a better way to put it. But it is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. This is the Charles E. Wilbur translation. I know there are several translation options available. This is the one that I have, but I'm considering getting the Penguin Classics. I know the Deluxe is the same translation that Rachel's going to be reading, and I would like to read the same translation, I think, but it also could be interesting to compare the translations. So, I'm excited for that. I'm going to be starting that on December 1st, and that will be my project for the month of December. Hopefully I will get something else read as well. 1,222 pages. which I think works out like somewhere around 40 pages a day. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's somewhere around 40 pages a day of that. So that should be fun. And reading books with someone else, particularly with someone you love, is always better than reading them alone. So I've got that to look forward to regardless. I think that's all I've got. I'm also going to be reading through, in November, I'm going to be trying to get through, apart from these, try to get through one book from each of the Bronte sisters. I'm around halfway through Wuthering Heights and I'm enjoying it. I will probably end up reading Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and then I've got a couple. I may go with Agnes Grey from Anne because I think it's shorter, and I don't know if I want to read two 500-page Victorian novels in 1 month. Jane Eyre is around that length, as well as Tenet of Wildfell Hall. So we'll see. I'm also doing my own sort of version of NaNoWriMo, trying to get this novella written, because it's been a while since I've written fiction. That's not the point of this video, so we're gonna leave it at that. If you enjoyed, I think the YouTube thing is to tell you to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm just gonna tell you to do what you want. If you've made it this far, you're a goddamn legend. So I will hopefully see y'all again soon.